So we had a pretty wild start to Monday. The leading gapper was PLL. This stock, they're up some agreement with Tesla to producing the part of the lithium batteries. And the stock, is pretty crazy. The close was at $11 on Friday. This morning, the stock, pre-market, around $30, $40, it was already up 200, 300%. So that's pretty crazy to think about it. The play was on the short side early on. Sorry guys, I'm a little bit, I pulled a muscle, pole dancing today, so it hurts when I talk. I think I'm gonna get it checked up. Sorry, I wish I can sound a little bit better, but if I pick up my voice or my tone, like my obliques hurt. It's kind of tough to talk right now, but nonetheless, I had some long, the only long I had was over here, right at the open of the volatility hold. I didn't intend to get into the hold, but at the open was reclaiming a very key level of $40, and that's why I went in long. And after the gap up, on hold, I want to sell into the hold. Make sure I do that because it rejected right away. In the stock, it slammed back down. I did try to long it, but once I realized the price action is very, very heavy, I flipped short. And you can see after the short entry, we stayed pretty much very weak. We had some small consolidation, covered some into this, but I was kept on adding into the flush because I think we could see at least 27 or below, but I was all out of it around 29.60s because the spread was really thin. It was like 50-cent spread. And then I did have some re-entries and re-entry shorts, and I stayed out of it after reclaimed VWAP. And midday, I usually stay away anyways. So small wing on the long side, but the gains on the stock was mostly on the short. The other stock was CBAT. So this one actually started running pre-market. You can see after a huge gap down from market sell-off. From the stock sell-off on Friday, and I was short the stock on Friday. So we did do a dead cat bounce in which the stock, ran from $2 to $3.60. So I was actually doing my live screening and watch list planning with my chat room pre-market, and when I saw this, I actually took a small pre-market size short around 320s. I didn't catch the top, but the idea wasn't to catch the top, right? The idea is to watch for a rejection and going short, which I did. Small size pre-market again. Whenever I trade long or short, pre-market's usually pretty small. 320s, we got some nice flush to 296s, and I was all out of the pre-market size around 280s. I was thinking we're gonna reclaim threes and hold for a while, but after seeing that broke down, we stayed very heavy. At the open, I did have a re-short around 260s and was all out by 216s. So this is a small winner, but they all add up slowly, right? And it's pretty much stress-free because it's a dead cat bounce. So A&O, it's a stock I longed early on, made some money on the long side. I did give back some of the re-entries just because it did pull back a lot further than I thought. It did gap down due to FDA putting one of the vaccines on hold, and the stock, crashed from $17 all the way to $10. I was long early on because I did think we're gonna get a bounce, but I actually got out way too early. As you can see, the stocks went all the way to $13, almost $14. But once this lower high sets in, that's where I started scaling in short, covered majority into 1260s, and it was all out here. I did have a re-short around here, but I didn't stay that long for the secondary re-short, and the stock kind of just faded off all day. Another small secondary short is UONE. This stock was actually one that I was hoping for a major squeeze move today, but pre-market was extremely weak. You can see, we gapped up on a short squeeze from all the way $6 all the way to $9, even 10s. Sometime after hours on Friday, some short sellers got squeezed into close, and they had a pretty bad weekend probably. But the stock faded off a lot, and that's why pre-market did have a small short, nothing big, but I was covering before the open, and at the open I covered into the drop around $6. The starter was about $7.50, covered some here, $6.80s. I was all out here. I did start re-shorting a little bit too early. The stock SSR was triggered, so I did think that they're gonna try to squeeze it up. I just didn't think it was gonna be this much. If it actually held the red to green close area around 6 50s, I would have gotten out for a loss, but the stock actually rejected and we just, sold back off into the 590s and had a reshort here. So I guess the best trade was the first one, and then later on it got a little bit sloppy, but still ended up with a small green just because, I was scaling in very, very slowly. So pretty much a scratch trade for me. Didn't really have anything much going on to scale into. For some reason, there were no locates available anywhere. Not saying that there isn't long plays, but a lot of the squeeze move already happened pre-market, such as APM. You can see they squeezed it up pre-market and the stock just faded off. And we had like a dead cat bounce. That's why I shorted into it. Locates were really hard to find and also very expensive. So I didn't have any size at all. So I'm using like small, tiny size on the short. Dead cat bounce, as I just mentioned, we hold it up. After the unhold, I started scaling in short. Had a nice average about 1150s, covered most of it into 10s, reshorted some here and was all out here. And this is where I thought, we could get an all-day fade like we did later on. So I went in with a very small size, partial position, and kind of just don't want to let it work. And near the middle of the day, around noon, starting to curl and starting to have some more volume. That's why I thought, maybe this is gonna squeeze and I don't want to get caught in another, upside hold like in the beginning. So that's why I cut it off. And literally, I cut it off at the top. As you can see, just kind of, sells off down to $5 from, $10. So it's pretty sad, but still, it wasn't like it was going to be anything big just because I didn't have that many shorts locates available. It's a very, very small one, small loss. SPCE, this one in hindsight, I really messed up. I had a nice entry around the consolidation around $20. It was very weak. That's why I was thinking that once $20 break down, we can go to potentially, $19, 1950s. And I even added into the 1960s thinking that we're gonna fall off even more. But once it starts reclaiming, that's why I realized that hey, like the trend is reversing. Market was starting to pick a reversal direction to the upside. That's why I covered a little bit too slow too. But at the same time, like today was one of those days where I was watching a lot of small caps and I didn't get to play anything. So this trade ended up being a small loss. In hindsight, this is where I should have covered my shorts. Obviously, everything's clear in hindsight. I should have stopped out a lot faster. Maybe here and all out of it around $20 range. But I kept the loss pretty minimized, so it's okay. Pretty much a scratch trade at a scratch day after, the win and a small win and a small loss. There isn't anything that big. One final trade to end the day is a pretty decent and very clean dip by NEO. The stock was strong, trending up all day long. Caught the dip from $21 down to $20.70. I had a nice long trade, very clean. You can see I entered one entry. I was pretty much all out around $20.99. I thought about keeping some overnight for a long, but recently I've been having trouble sleeping, and I feel like like a potential swing trade, potential profits, but it's not really worth sacrificing my sleep. So at the end, I just took it off. And of course, after I take off, it's gonna gap up higher now to $22 maybe, but no regrets at all. It's a very, very clean dip buying trade, and it's a setup that I really, really like. So, pretty light day for me. I'm still kind of recovering from my muscle pains, but hopefully tomorrow, small caps stop doing these kind of algo squeeze mode and where there's no locates and there's no long entries. Just kind of want some clean trending action. Okay, so a very, very nice way to end September. It started out really slow, but things picked up a little bit near last week, and today was great as well. I hate it when most of these gappers are these like super cheap names like $1, $2 stocks. They are a little bit more difficult to trade, but beggars can be choosers, right? At least we have some sort of low float momentum going today. So ITRM, I was actually long early on pre-market. The stock closed at 65 cents, and pre-market was trading around 142s. This is one of those types of stocks that you don't want to short too early, because these cheap names, it's very easy to manipulate, and a lot of times they like to do this kind of shenanigans right out of the gate. The float is relatively small, same as the market cap. After the hold up, I did sell some pre-market first, hold up, I sold all of it into, towards $2. $2 mark, you can see some daily resistance levels. That's why I sold all of it. It could have gone to, 240s, 230s, but, I didn't want to risk a hold down, which it did happen. That's why I went in short. Is around like almost 10 o'clock. I shorted the holds down, so I was not involved, no position on this candle. But after the hold, I think it's the third hold. So first hold, second hold, third hold was a downward hold, and that's why I shorted into it. I covered up most of it from, 217s down to 280s. Pretty nice. I started scaling back short, had some here, shorted on the pops. I was out some of it around 119s. It did hold up again, but, the unholds, they got rejected really quickly. So that's a sign telling you that this is really weak. I was out most of it here. I wish I was better at trading these super cheap names, because a lot of times they give a lot more downward move. Like you see, it went all the way to $1. But they're also really tricky, and that's why I kind of try to take the meat of the move and move on, is because of this stock like CTIC. So similar price range, you can see, just like a lot of chop all day. Every time it looks like it's gonna fail, it spikes back up and then, and then reject again and then fail again. So the cheaper the names are, around $2, $1, the more the easier it is for insiders, manipulators, market makers to manipulate it and to prop it up or to drop it as they want to. And that's why I try to, be a lot less patient with these ones. I was all short on CTIC. I started some here pre-market. I was all this short, and I tried to scale back in. You can see, shorted on the spikes, rejection from the highs. And then, we keep on holding this $2 mark and we won't break down. That's why I covered most of my short positions, stopped out on the rest, and had this tiny scalp here. I'm a lot more conservative when I aim for these base hits when it's $1, $2 stocks, because when they rip, they could do an NNDM like this one. You can see, it seems like it's gonna die. Pre-market went through $3 and it starts holding this $2.30s mark. And then we just kind of started squeezing all the way to 330s, and then pretty much gave back 50% and more of the gains and came back to 260s again. And you can see it tried to do the same kind of spike again into the close and after hours as well. And that's why I try to take the meat of it and scalp short on this name around 260s, had a nice 260s average. Also out for that tiny 10-cent gains. But if you have some size, you can get some pretty nice scalp moves. Same as this one, shorted 290s and also out 280s. It did go lower to 270s, but you never know with these things. You can see, after it sold off to 270s, it reclaimed it and then squeezed back higher. So that's the reason I'm more conservative and kind of just in and out of these positions on the cheaper names. The loser on the day is mRNA. So this one actually tried to go in long. And of course, I'm usually short biased on the stock, but today when I thought could be a good long, it actually rejected and sold off. So, it is what it is. So this is about a little bit, just under $1, just a little bit more than $1 per share loss on the long side. Starter, so this is how I keep my losses small. I have a starter size in almost everything I do. The very big winner on the long side is NEO. So this one, remember yesterday on the recap, I talked about longing it around 2070s and sold into the close, anticipating a gap up. But I didn't hold anything overnight, just because I want to sleep better. But we did get the nice gap up of over $1 a share, very nice. I didn't want to chase the breakouts because I know this is how NEO trades. I want to long the dips on this. You can see a clear daily double bottom, basically almost bottom ticked it on the long side, sold into the push towards VWAP, scale back in. But once we start holding with higher lows, that's why I went back in long. I was never short the stock, I was all long on the stock. On the dips, anticipating a squeeze, and because the stock tends to do that, and the price action was consolidating for a nice squeeze, which we got. And I even added into the squeeze, by the majority of my shares was sold into this breakout move, right? I don't buy breakouts. The breakout is when I sell. I buy down here in the consolidation, and I'm selling into the people who are chasing the breakouts, essentially. So it's basically all my position. I did try to go back thinking that, oh, we might get another squeeze. But when we didn't get that, you can see I cut my re-entries really quickly. So that's how I limit my losses when there's a clear rejection of highs. So very nice long trade on NEO. Did I talk about NNDM? I talked about ITRM, CTEK. Oh, the other small name, CTEK, very similar to CTIC. The name sounds very similar. This one I'm all short on the stock. It's a very clear pump name. Look at the daily chart. Look at all the other stocks running at the same time around a similar price range. So gave a lot of very good opportunities on the short side. The majority of my shorts were pre-market. These were just secondary, like tiny reshorts for, some small gains to pay the bills, right? So small size, very stress-free, waited for on the backside after a clear breakout failed, shorted the bounce to VWAP, and very clean, stress-free. This one is another one that added up nicely, even with small size, high range, high volatility. This is the kind of stock I love to trade. Momentum name was spiking. Look at a daily chart, right? Clear resistance around $9. It's a low float stock, so yeah, it might spike to 970s, 980s, but when it keeps on rejecting this $9, I know that it's gonna fail. It's rejected once here, rejecting again, even after this kind of squeeze. Still couldn't keep holding $9, and that's why we got a nice fade, breakdown to 890s, 860s, but a majority of my shorts were covered around 820s. So very nice move, and it definitely added up pretty decently for a very nice way to end September. So today's the first trading day of the new month of October. Started out a little bit choppy on my side. I did a couple of trades that's just a little bit messy. SLDB is one of them, but I took a break, ended with small win on the small green in the morning session and came back and made a much cleaner trades. So I'm really happy about that. But SLDB was one of those morning trades that I just didn't do that well on. I was actually overall bullish on the stock, but just like the way it trades from $4 all the way to $6 right at the open. That's why I decided to short, even just a starter size. You can see on the short, I got squeezed out, I covered, and this is where I actually went in long. I went in long here, actually got stopped out on the first long, and then I re-entered again and made some small profit. So it also just wasn't that clean. The idea was really originally to long closer to $4. But, a lot of times when these stocks just take off and never dip back down to $4 until much later on when it actually broke down, then it's not a long anymore. So I had some decent, nice dip buys and sold into it. And once it stayed heavy, I actually had a tiny scalp short. You can see I shorted here around 515s, and I was all out of it for 470s in the stock. Later, tanked to 430s and even lower by the end of the day. So, but wasn't that clean of a trade for me. And it's the same as DKNG. This one I was actually, long bias, thinking that it's gonna, trend and, start holding 61s and go higher. And I mean, it did, but much later on, after it stopped me out a couple of times, you can see not a very clean trade on this ticker for me. And this stock is historically being really choppy, and I should have been more conservative and more patient. It just didn't work out. You can see I was long the starter, long out of the starter. I re-long starter. We had a nice breakout. I was thinking, okay, well, I'm gonna long the dip, and in anticipation of this kind of move, right? I thought this move was gonna happen over here. Was wrong, stopped out again. I tried it one more time, it just didn't work. So death by a 1,000 paper cuts on starter on DKNG. So red on this name. But the other few trades I did was much cleaner. RKT was one of them. I was long, heard the news, and if you look at the chart on the downtrend, breaking a very clear level of $21. And once this 21 starts holding, that's why I went in long, sold into the breakout. I tried to re-enter again, didn't work out. But I stopped out pretty quickly on my re-entries on the long side. But overall, it's a much cleaner trade than DKNG in general. So that's RKT, made money on the long side. The biggest trade on the day was ENLV on the short side. for me. This one, as usual, I took a loss pre-market, small, right, pre-market size, it's fine. I had another small pre-market short here around 1040s. I covered the pre-market position into 960s and at the open over here. And at the open, when we got a nice spike to 11s, that's why, started shorting again. Covered most of it here, and we hit some small on the backside here. And then, had a squeeze out of nowhere. Thankfully, my size was okay, so it allows me to be more patient and see how it plays out. If we start holding 10s and start grinding up, then I'll stop out of my re-entry on the short side. But it didn't. Stayed pretty heavy. Covered some, I actually re-added backing shorts a couple more times here. Tried it again over here and near the end of the day as well. So overall, decent trades today. It started out a little choppy, and there were a couple trades that I gave back some profit, but that's kind of the name of the game in trading. You win some, you lose some. What matters more is that the risk is managed and you come out green, keeping your losses relatively small and your winners a lot bigger. Hey guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and the bad jokes. If you want to see more day trading content, make sure to subscribe and follow me on Twitter and Instagram for more. If you'd like to trade with me daily and get my free weekend watch list and trading journal, make sure to check out the links below for more resources. Stay green, stay positive, and I'll see you guys next time.